We've talked about equilibrium in the money market and equilibrium in the bond market. This first equation summarizes equilibrium in the money market. The right-hand side is the demand for real money balances, real meaning M divided by P, and we can think of the left-hand side as the supply of real money balances. Similarly, down here we have that the demand for real bonds depends on what's backing them, what gives them value, which is these future surpluses. And the left-hand side is the supply of real bonds. Now you'll notice that P, the price level, appears in both of these expressions. But there can only be one equilibrium price level in the economy. So the price level that is consistent with equating supply and demand in the money market has to also be consistent with equating supply and demand in the bond market. Now there are two ways that these policies can be made consistent with each other. Consistent meaning they deliver the same equilibrium price level. The conventional view is that monetary policy determines P, again we should be thinking of that in quotation marks, and fiscal policy keeps debt stable. So this would be the Ricardian world. But the alternative view that we've been talking about is where fiscal policy determines P. So P gets determined, quote, in the bond market, and then monetary policy has to be doing something to keep debt stable. So what we're going to do is look at two canonical policies. We're going to look at a fiscal policy, which is a cut in taxes today that's financed with more bonds, and then something has to adjust to make sure that that's in equilibrium. And the second is a monetary policy action, which is an open market sale of government bonds. And what we're going to see is that without additional policy adjustments, the bond market and money market don't end up delivering the same equilibrium price level. So then we have to go into describing what additional policy adjustments have to occur to ensure that monetary and fiscal policy are consistent with each other. And again, as I said before, consistent policies are defined as ones that deliver the same equilibrium price level in the two asset markets. So let's start with looking at a tax cut today. So we're going to cut taxes today, and we're going to finance this tax cut by increasing bonds. So since taxes are going down, bonds are going up. So the government's selling more debt. Now let's suppose that we don't say anything further about what might happen. Well, let's see what happens in the money market and the bond market. In the money market, remember, in the money market, the equilibrium condition is that M over P equals L of Y and R. Now, in our experiment, we've cut taxes and we've increased the quantity of bonds that the government sells. But none of those variables appear in this equilibrium condition. So this suggests that nothing happens in the money market. Whatever the original price level was is still the price level that clears the money market, makes supply equal to demand. But now if we look at the bond market, we get a different story. Remember that here the equilibrium condition is the real value of bonds equals the present value of this curly surplus. Now we have an increase in bonds, right? The government's selling more debt in order to finance the tax cut. But in this world, we haven't, yeah. But if there's no change in the present value of surpluses, in other words, if this tax cut and bond increase doesn't portend any change in future taxes, then people are going to feel wealthier. They have more income today because their taxes have been cut. They're not expecting taxes to go up in the future. So what are they going to do? They're going to try to buy more goods. And when they do that, the price level starts to go up, and bond demanders just slide up this fixed demand curve until they're willing to absorb this extra quantity of nominal bonds. So the bottom line is, in the money market, it appears as though this tax cut doesn't do anything to either supply or demand, whereas in the bond market, we have a tax cut that raises wealth, and people then try to buy more goods with that tax cut, and that drives up the price level. Now, because we've assumed that there's no change in future expected taxes, this present value term is constant. And what that means is that the real value of bonds outstanding can't change. So we have an increase in nominal bonds. Remember, B2 is bigger than B1. But then that means that the price level has to go up proportionally so that the real value of bonds doesn't change. But the main point here is that just looking at the money market or the bond market in isolation can lead us to different conclusions about what's happening to the price level.